Hello, I am Sam Debussy, a Senior QuickSight Worldwide Go-to-Market Specialist with AWS, and I'm joined by Raji Sivasu Brahmanyam, who is a Senior QuickSight Solution Architect. Thank you for joining the AWS team today to learn how you can drive business insight with autonomous analytics with no-code, low-code development mode. The idea is, however raw your data might be, you will learn how to curate, cleanse, and prep the data using AWS Glue Data Brew, and then visualize the data in Amazon QuickSight. And finally, you will learn how to deploy natural language query searches using QuickSight Q to empower your users to ask business questions in plain English and get the answers in a visualization form instantly. We have a very busy agenda, an exciting agenda. We're going to talk about the challenges that customers face in data prep and analytics, and we will discuss the no-code, low-code future view. We'll look at how you can visualize or utilize, how you can utilize low-code, no-code approach with AWS services. We'll also discuss features of Q, QuickSight, and Data Brew, and finally, we'll have an interactive demo of these services. A recent study by Gartner states that with the rise of digital transformation, 88% of IT leaders have increased their workloads in the past 12 months. Many report that the increase of demand are for new application, and they say that they're concerned with the workloads and how that might stifle their ability to innovate. The same study predicts that by 2024, 80% of new tech products and services will be built by people who are not technology professionals. So if we can take that into mind and then think of a common use case that we can apply in our business today or in a business, and think about, take a use case where you're tasked to empower a sales team in a global organization to be able to get insights from the data in a very quick manner. As usual, you're pressed with time and don't have the technical staff who is skilled with the technical capabilities to achieve that goal. You also know that your data is not clean, and the business users don't know or they don't have the technical knowledge to curate that data. So now let's see how various AWS services can help you achieve that goal. Looking at the QuickSight reference architecture with Data Brew, you're going to take that raw data from the source, clean and prep the data before creating a topic in queue that will enable your business user to ask a simple question in English and get the business answer within a few seconds. And all of that is done with no code at all. This diagram details the journey of the data from the data source to Amazon QuickSight and Q. The first box represents the data sources, one or many data sources that you might connect to, whether it's an Athena, an EMR, or data warehouse with Redshift, or it could be on on-premise or other cloud source. And the second layer, what you're seeing, is the layer with Data Brew, where you're able to select the data, build a recipe, join the data, schedule jobs, before you visualize that in QuickSight and utilize the natural language query within Q. So let's dive deeper in each piece of the architecture, and we'll start off with Data Brew, which is the visual data preparation piece. So what is Data Brew, and what challenges does it help to solve? AWS Glue Data Brew is a serverless, no-code visual data preparation tool that would allow a business user or an analyst or a data scientist to visually explore and experiment with the data independently without writing any code again. When the challenges it solves is today, the industry estimates that in analytics and machine learning pipelines, up to 80% of the time is spent on the data preparation activities. And the reason is because the current tools that are used in the market today are very manual, which requires that everything to be done by code, and it's very hard to operationalize and build repeatable workflows. It's very time consuming. It requires multiple steps to extract, to clean, to replicate and load that data at scale. And it's very insufficient because it requires a certain technical level for users to be able to do that. And that makes it very clear that there's a need for a data preparation service that is easy to use and to access, and it is for someone whose skill level is not very technical. And Glue Data Brew does exactly that. It also allows you to connect to your data stores, provide a visual interactive interface to explore, clean, combine, and transform your data without any coding. With Data Brew, you can easily access and visually explore any amount of data from a variety of sources, whether it's an S3 or a data warehouse or Redshift, or RDS. And you can choose from over 300 built-in functions to combine, pivot, and transpose data without writing any code. Users can filter anomalies, normalize the data to standardized time or a date format, generate aggregates for analysis, or correct invalid, misclassified, or duplicate data. They can also save the cleaning and normalization steps into a workflow in Data Brew that's called a recipe, and then apply that automatically to future incoming data. And these changes can be made to that workflow again if things change, and then again reapply it to all incoming data. With Data Brew, you can also use data quality capabilities to pull detailed statistics from the data and determine if it's fit for your use or for fit for use in general. You can identify and remove outliers, mask sensitive data, apply data quality rules to make sure that the data coming in meets the requirement for business use. And to summarize in general about Data Brew, it's a serverless, fully managed tool, which means that as a customer, you do not need to configure, you don't need to provision or manage any compute resources. And most importantly, Data Brew is for users of all technical levels. As the next step within the architecture, we're going to talk about QuickSight, which is the first cloud-native serverless, embeddable, low-code, machine learning-powered BI service. So if you think about, what if you don't have to have the trade-off between ubiquitous access and prohibitive cost? And to do that, you really need to rethink the BI architecture from the ground up, and which is exactly what we've done with QuickSight. As a cloud-native BI solution, natively integrated with AWS. So what does it really mean to be cloud-native? It means there's no servers or software to manage. You can start with tens of users, scale up to 1,000, then scale back down to none, without really thinking about any management or provisioning of servers. And furthermore, you're able to do that with pay-as-you-go pricing for readers. So if you think about the huge advantage that gives you, other than the fact that it's the parity of AWS native solution, which means it's fully integrated with AWS, it has AWS-grade security, and it has centralized and it has let me repeat that, AWS-grade security and compliance and end-to-end encryption. It does have centralized IAM permissions with fine-grained access control, and it does give you access to logging through CloudTrail. With QuickSight, you can create interactive dashboards and visuals. You can embed anywhere, whether it's an internal use case or an external use case. You can add rich interactive filters, drill downs, all done with no code. You can access it from any device. It is compatible with all types of browsers. All you need to do is access to a browser. And you can automate that data refresh. And you'll always have that blazing fast navigation. Within QuickSight, what you'll have is, you'll see it has the random cut forest algorithm baked in. It's the same algorithm that Amazon SageMaker uses. and Amazon.com uses. And then users are able to set up anomaly detection, get alerted on spikes or dips in certain sales, for example, or churn. And furthermore, they can look in deeper to see what has created that anomaly. What are the contributed factors that cause that anomaly? Users are able to create forecasts, generate natural language narratives, and all of that can be done with a few clicks of a button with no code required whatsoever. Finally, we'll talk about Q, which is the natural language querying capability that is part of QuickSight. With Q, users are able to ask these ad hoc questions to your data. And Q is part of QuickSight. It was launched in October of 2021. And Q is a machine learning powered language query capability. It empowers the user, like I mentioned, to ask that question in plain English. The key customer problem is when your business user is looking at your dashboard and they don't have the answer that they don't need to rely on BI teams by sending a request to them to update or create a new dashboard, and which can take several weeks to create, and also creates a lot of frustration because the user is not getting the answer they need in the moment they need it. And also it puts a lot of load on the thinly staffed BI teams. So if you look at this, here's an example of a user asking a simple question. So what is the week-over-week difference in revenue? Q is interpreting that question and the intent of the user. It's retrieving the data from the data source, and it's generating a QuickSight visualization. With Q, a user can get answers within seconds. Q uses machine learning to automate the modeling process when it's answering these questions. You're asking questions to all the data. Unlike other natural language query vendors in the market, it's not limited to a preset data or not limited to a preset dashboard that's been pre-built specific. And then you're able also within Q to use that language that you're used to use. It understands that complex phrases. So if you're talking in sales terminology, you can ask questions, how is my sales tracking versus my quota? Or for your marketing, what is the conversion rate for my campaigns? Or if you're in retail, what are the top products sold over the week? And finally, sticking to the no-code, low-code theme, Raji will show you how easy it is to deploy and manage Q. With a few clicks, you can enable Q and to start answering questions from your team. And it will take a few seconds to get that up and running. I'll pass it to Raji right now.
Thank you, Sam. Hi, everyone. So for our demo, let's consider a simple use case. If you're working for an ABC Corp that is global and that sells products to its customers across the world. And in your situation, let's say that the data is being generated every minute, every second, maybe not that frequent. However it is, you are generating a lot of sales data and you would like to analyze the sales data and come up with the actionable insights and provide to your field team in an easy to use platform and in a timely manner. In this process, you also like to eliminate or at least reduce the dependency of your technical staff in delivering any analytics you need for your sales team. So basically, we are going to address how you can have the analytics done in a shorter time without depending much on your technical staff. And in that process, how could you take care of your data prep and curation as well? Okay. And for this particular demo, I have a made up sample data, and that data is in S3 bucket for me over here. This particular data has some quality issues like duplicates, outliers in the sales numbers, and then some missing information on some of the regional values. and then it also has formatting issues and few others, and it does have PII as well. So we are going to start with data brew and see how we could profile the data first and then do some transformations, all without doing any coding. So you can empower your analyst team to do it, and pretty much 80% of the time you may not even need to write any script to do the data prep. Okay. With that, let me switch over to the data brew, where I will point to this particular data source in S3. And here is my data brew console. And you see a bunch of the data set you already have, but we are going to create one now pointing to our S3 data and do few of the transformation steps. And the first step in data brew, whether you are profiling your data or transforming your data, is creating the data set, pointing to whatever your source might be. And in this case, even though my source is S3, data brew connects to a bunch of different sources, and we keep adding different sources frequently. So just for your information, but for us it's S3. I'm going to leave it as S3, name it as live demos as, and I'm going to point to the S3 bucket where I have my input data. Okay. And this is the data file I have with some quality issues, and mine is CSV file. It's a comma delimited one, and I do have the header row. Over here you have a bunch of other settings in case if you want to schedule this job and run it automatically whenever the data gets to S3 bucket. You could do a dynamic parameter setting and set up the job. And I'm not going to use any tags. It's optional. It's similar to any AWS services. You could track the resourcing by using tags. Let's create the data set over here. I got it in my dataset screen. And now for profiling the data, I just need to go and do run data profile. And it will create what we call it as a profile job in data brew. For the profile job, you can name it to whichever makes sense. I'm going to leave it as default, but then the data sample, you can either run it on full data set or you can pick your custom sample. Most of the times I'm used to run profiling on full data set. If you are a data person, you would know why we need that. Let me run it on full data set. This data set is not that big. And then we have two different types of jobs in data brew. And this one is profile job. When we do the transformation, we will create a recipe job. That also we will do in a bit. Then you can do some output settings, like if you want the output to be in the same AWS account or different account, and then if you want to encrypt or not, but I need to provide a location for my output, and that is again going to be in S3 for me. Let me put to this one. I'm not going to encrypt my output file. But you can do it if you want. And then we do have some options to customize your data profiling itself. You can customize how you want the duplicates or PII stats and correlation to be. And then at a column level also, you could customize how you want the stats to be in your profile output. And then in addition to that, you could set up some data quality rules and set some threshold alerts as well for your data check. I'm not going to do any of those for our demo, but if you have any questions, we are happy to answer and point you to the resources with in-depth information on that as well. And then job setting, it will let you to control the number of nodes you want the data brew job to use for this profiling, and few other information for your job itself is there. And then if you want to put it in as schedule, you can do so. Tags are similar optional one. I'm not going to worry about that for our demo, permissions, the most important thing. Like any other AWS service, you can either create a new role to run this profile job or use an existing role. I'm going to use the one that I have already. And now I'm going to say create and run this profiling for my data. Minute or so. So if you have any questions when this is running, we can use the time for it. Yeah.
So what's the footprint while it's running the data profiling?
Let's get the mic, and if you don't mind repeating your question.
What's the footprint while it's running the data profiling?
I actually picked the whole data set, but you have an option. You can customize it. You can pick the custom number of rows.
Okay. No, I mean from footprint perspective, like is it lightweight where the same data while you're profiling can be utilized?
Meaning?
Meaning like the same data which you are doing profiling on, is that what if that is getting used in somewhere in a production environment?
Yeah, you can have it utilized somewhere else. Okay. I can actually show you. I have the same data set here. I can open a project and point to this is actually using the same data set. I can work on this while somebody else is running something on it.
And what's your subscription model or licensing model?
For Data Brew, I have to refer you to your AM account manager to talk to, because there are things that are in the Data Brew side that we are not. We are QuickSight specialists, so we don't have exact numbers in our hand right now.
No, it's in terms of licensing model. Is it like pay-per-use or?
It's pay-per-use. It's serverless, fully managed, so pay-per-use. And you get to choose the number of nodes you use for your job. So you control the cost in that way. But then there is a cost associated with how much data it's processing, how many nodes it's using, and things like that. Any other questions? Yes.
Does it hold history or lineage to know if a data set's been processed before?
Yeah, I'm sorry, can you repeat that question?
Yeah, so if I have, say, 5 analysts in one data set, if somebody profiles that data set, will it automatically succeed and say, oh, I don't need to run this job again, somebody else has already run the profile?
If somebody else has already run the profile, over here, you see the view data profile. If I try to create or profile this data again, it will show me what has already been done. At that point, you can either decide to not run or run it. Go back here. All right, our profiling is done. So once it's...
One quick question.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry. Just want to know about the options for automation from end to end. Let's say, I saw that you're working off of a file in S3. What if you have a scenario where you have multiple tenants, they're just dumping files into S3, and you want that whole process end to end to be automated, just like profiling the data, cleansing it, and then creating visualizations in QuickSight?
Automate as in programmatically doing API code?
Correct, yeah.
Yes, you can create the event bridge trigger whenever file gets into S3, and then you can have the Lambda function create the profile job in case if it is a new data that you are expecting. Profile job, yeah, there are APIs in Data Brew for creating data set, profiling, creating recipe jobs, adding recipes, or import a recipe, whatever you want. Most of that is available in it. Even job scheduling is available. And then when it comes to QuickSight, then there are a set of APIs where you have to do the create data set again in QuickSight data set, and then visualization. Basically, currently we need you to create in QuickSight console. We can get to that when we have quick site part. All right, so this is our profiling output. And what you see in here is the overview of the data set profile in this particular tab. And it starts with the total number of rows and columns and the column data types that we have in the data. Then information about the missing values and duplicate rows. And this side you see the correlation. And here it's a value distribution across columns and followed by column level summary on this side. And then if you see this particular tab, this has a little bit in-depth information on column stats. For example, in our data, since I was telling about the global sales across different region, what if I want to know specifically how is my region data and how are my sales numbers? I can just go in here, click on the region, and I can see that I have some missing information over here. Good that I don't have outliers. So now I can decide that I would like to transform the missing data over here based on certain conditions or based on something in my transformation job in Databro. And then, for example, another one is the sales number. So if you pick the sales number, you'd see another interesting factor. In addition to missing data, we have outliers as well. And in case if you want to know a little bit of preview of the outlier data that is there in the sales, you can scroll down over here and click over here. You have a preview of what is there in your data and whether you need to do anything to filter it out or to handle it in a different way during your transformation. These two examples I picked because we are going to create a couple of recipes as a next step in our Databro transformation job. But quickly before that, in case if you have any custom data quality rule set, here is where you would see the output of that. And then data lineage is basically from the source S3, what happened to your file, how it got transformed. So if you have the workflow that's very complex, you will know a quick overview of your data lineage in this particular tab. Any questions before I move into the transformation project with Databro?
Can you show an example of the quality rule, DQ rule?
I can create one, but
Can you repeat that question with the mic so we can get it on video?
Can you show an example of data quality rule, please?
yeah, you can create. You just here. You can pick how you want the check to be, whether for each column you want to check something, and on success what you want to do, and on failure what you want to do, things like that. And then this one you can do it as part of your profile and track how this particular alert is working with your data. I can dive deep once we are done with it. Like if you have time. But here's where you would set up the data quality checkbox. Now, with that profiling data, if I want to create some transformation, for example, for the region column, if I want to fill in the missing values and then handle duplicates, outliers, and few other formatting issues, I have to create a recipe project for that. And I'm going to name it the same one. And while we are creating the transformation, we have a choice to either pick the already existing recipe we have, or we can create new one. For our demo, I'm going to create the new one, and I'm also going to show you how you can append recipe from another project. Then I have my data set, so I'm going to pick this option, but you do have option to have a sample file or new data set. This is the data set we profiled. I'm going to use that. And for this one, I'm going to pick the sample size of 1,000 just to make sure that we see all the features in our time. And then permissions, I'm going to use the same role, but you are more welcome to create a new one if you like. Then create the project. This will take 2 minutes or so. While that's being done, just wanted to have a quick overview on here. The 300 plus functions that DataBrew supports is coming from this menu over here. We have column level, a row level, and then a data level functions. Then if you want a split, merge, create, you have set of functions for that. And then we do have unnest nest. If you have a JSON data with multiple levels, then you can pivot, group, and join and union, all of them without writing any code. It's all UI based. And then we do have some advanced functions like one-hot encoding, binning, and whatnot within DataBrew. And right now, what it's doing is it's creating the metadata for the data and also the preview of the 1,000 row samples that I'm asking it to do. Any questions while it's trying to generate the preview for us?
Hello. Yeah. At this stage, if I, once the transformation is complete, if I have multiple applications running which use this data, do I create a pipeline to all those 5 applications, or do I store this back into an S3 bucket and use it from there? How would I go about that?
Yeah, you basically would store it in S3, or it could output to different sources as well if you want.
Okay.
Could
Both
output
options
to data sources like RDS or some other data source as well.
Okay.
Can you scale up if you have a large data set, and how do you control that?
When it's doing the
Like what instance do you pick? Do you have an option to scale up, use a stronger EC2 instance to make it run faster?
you have an option to provide the number of nodes you could, but you don't have an option to pick the instance type if that's what you're asking.
Just curious, setting up, the recipes and all of this different stuff, is this all supported in infrastructure as code, like in CloudFormation, if we wanted to set up, repeated stuff for our team once we found good recipes and everything?
I need to check the CloudFormation part, but full programmatic API support is there. And we have introduced JSON format for some of the downstream things like QuickSight. But I know there are roadmap items for DataBrew, but don't have an ATA currently for that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was just curious because sometimes if they do have it, it's nice if there's a good example repo. I know sometimes you guys put examples out there of how to quickly spin up like a sample project in CloudFormation or something. So was just curious. Thank you.
Sample project is there, but CloudFormation support, I got to check for DataBrew. But we do have for QuickSight, both CloudFormation support, and we are having a new feature that's coming up, which is called code as assert as code, meaning anything you create in QuickSight like dashboards or analysis, you have an option to make it as a JSON code. And then in your target account or target area, you can run the JSON and get the visualization out. Right, this one is ready for us to do transformation. If you see up over here, it has some column level stats. I'm not going to go through each one of them with the interest of time, but let's create a couple of recipes and import few recipe and see how easy it is to create transformation in DataBrew. We talked about the region column having some missing value. I know that there are missing values for United States as a country in the region column. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a new column for region and check for any missing value in the region column, and then make a condition to check the country column as United States and create the region for region value for it. So I'm starting with adding a step and then going to create a column. You can either go through menu here or you can type in here. And I'm going to make it based off of a missing condition. So it's condition based. You have if and case. I'm picking if and match all condition. I'm going to check the existing region column in my original data. And I'm going to say whenever region column is missing and if the country column has value that is same as United States. So just say United States. Give me the new value which is custom value for me, which I'm going to call my region as IMAR. Otherwise, I'm going to leave it to the defaulted to the region value I'm getting in my original data file, even if it's empty for now. So while I'm doing that, you might have noticed how it's creating an if construct for me. It says if region is missing and country is United States, create this and whatnot. And now let me name this one as a curated column, curated region. And now if before you apply this, you can see the changes, preview of the change you made. And over here in the preview section, you would see a new column added. And side by side, you can see it with the original column. Here for this row, it sees the country as United States, but region missing, so it's populating with AMERS region. Another one here. Okay. Now, if I'm satisfied with that, I can say apply. The moment I say apply, you have created one transformation in your data. So you will see one recipe being added to this one. Okay. And now let's say that I don't want my original region column. I want to delete it. That's again easy to do it. It's a column level. So go to column and say delete. Then you have to pick the column you want to delete. So here it's region for me. Just say apply. It will add the second step to the recipe saying that delete this column. And now what if I want to rename this one to the region column? I just have to go rename. And this one is being renamed to my region column, then apply. And now we saw some duplicate rows. So if you want to get rid of the duplicate, you create another recipe, just say duplicate, and you have few options whether you want to remove the whole row or do you want to replace a value or flag the column and whatnot. For us, we will just go with the simple delete the duplicate row for our demo, and that will be added as our fourth recipe step. Then I'll add one for outlier, and then I will move on quickly to show you how you could import and reuse already existing recipe. My outlier, I want to fix the sales number, which we saw as an outlier in profile. And it's based, you can pick which deduction method you would like to use. I'm going to leave it as Z-score. This is the default method we used during the profiling. And here, if you want to replace or flag, you could do it. I'm just going to remove them for our demo. Apply. Now you see this, all these steps being added as a different transformation. It's part of your recipe. Okay, now you get the idea of how easy it is to add a different transformation using Data Brew. You don't have to have any SQL skills or any other scripting skills. And now what if you wanted to reuse some of this transformation from another data set or another recipe? You could import them. I'm going to show you how to do it. I already have a bunch of transformations in one of these recipes that would apply for this data. This one. Click next. So what it is showing here is these are the steps in your new project. These are the steps from the imported recipe. And you also have an option to either append or overwrite. Let's append the imported ones. And next step, it will validate the recipes and add it to our existing project. So this all will get added to your recipe project. Now you can create a job to run it on the whole data set. Let's go with this. And the settings are almost same as the profile thing we did. So I'm just going to go through with the interest of time. I do need to provide the output. Location would be Databrew. Let's say I want to go to demo output. You have similar settings over here, same as a profile job, and I'm just going to click and have my same role to run this one as well. So you'll see job in progress, which means that it's applying the transformation to the whole data set, and the output will be returned to S3, where we have provided the output location. Okay. That is actually the Databrew part. Now when the output is there in the S3 bucket, we can use QuickSight to connect to that output file and create dashboard. Since we are a little bit behind, I'm going to use the data set that I already have, which is similar to the same sample data we used on the QuickSight side. And that is also in the same output folder. So like in Databrew, when we come to QuickSight as well, before you start with visualization, you have to create the QuickSight data set pointing to the data source. We will create one. And this is an S3 input, but you do have different data sources you could pick for QuickSight dashboards. I'm going to pick S3 and demo. If you want to be a direct query, you could use Athena to S3, but I'm going to just use a manifest file and upload it from my desktop. And if your manifest is there in S3 or somewhere else, you could provide the URL. But for our demo, I'm going to use the one from my desktop, and I'll show you what is in it in a moment. Oh yeah, sorry.
Going back to the recipe,
Mm-hmm.
I apologize, my eyes aren't that good, but in terms of some of the functions that you can do within, can you parse columns, split them, concatenate them?
Yes, you can do all of those split substring, or take a part of it, or combine it, or apply certain other functions to it, and derive the column out of the existing column.
Great, thank you.
Does the Athena connector use glue catalog?
Yes.
And also, do we have an interface to use APIs, Pythons, R in the interface?
In the Databrew part?
Yeah.
No, if you want to use custom Python function, is that the question?
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Okay. Unfortunately, at this moment, we don't support custom Python function in Databrew. If you want to use custom Python, then Glue Data Studio is your option to go.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Here in QuickSight as well, you can either edit and prepare the data and apply some QuickSight functions, but I'm not going to do that for this demo. And if you guys are interested, we have self-paced workshops. We can share the links for you. And I'm going to directly visualize. And once we have this one 100% complete, we will start doing the charts in QuickSight. Let's see whether everything, this is complete as well. All right, we have all the rows added. So you see that the data set I created is this one, and I'll show you the manifest file that's pointing to this particular folder. This one. This one was the one I used, but this is the one that we created just now with our live demo. And for QuickSight dashboard, I'm going to create bunch of different objects, and then we will do a queue topic on top of this one. With QuickSight, if you are familiar with it, you know that the moment you start picking some columns, it will do the auto chart for you depending on the data value in the field you are choosing. In my case, I'm going to have a sales trend, and it does identify when I choose the date. It is a trend line bar. And here, let's make it less busy by aggregating the date to month instead of day. Let's add a forecast. And let's make it for an year. And let's test it with 6 months backwards. Don't want to mess with the seasonality here. Just go with that. It's okay. Now I can say that my trending is good for my actual data time frame. So I'm trusting this model forecast. And now let's add a few more visuals here before we switch to queue. We don't want custom insights. We will go with the, let me delete that. And we'll go with the simple donut chart with the interest of time. Let me say I want the sales by product. Then let me, since we didn't add any custom insights, let me add some suggested insights. If you know QuickSight, the moment you start building this chart, QuickSight will start remembering what you are doing, and it will build some insights for you based on your data and the visualization you are picking while you are doing the dashboard. Let's add 1 or 2 of this. Let's go with this one. With a click, you can add that to your dashboard actually. Let's see, size them. And oh well, we can add a map since we said that it's a regional data. I'll pick a field map for our stuff. We'll go with country and sales. Let's say that I want to format this data based on some condition. Let me apply some conditional formatting. The reason why I'm doing conditional formatting for map is basically I'm going to use and link this object when we are going to do a natural language querying with QuickSight Q. So let me add a conditional formatting based off of sales data. Let me add the background color. And for this one, let's say if the value is greater than 100,000 will work for us based on the data. Make it green. Otherwise, let's create a band. Let's do maybe between here. And do between 50 and 100. Let's make it like an yellow. Then let's do a red one. apply. You can arrange the dashboard if however you want. I'm just going to focus on how you could create a dashboard and then use it in the QuickSight queue and provide it for a natural language query search. Okay. Let's say that I'm good with this dashboard and I'm going to publish it to my users. All I have to do is go here and publish the dashboard. And let me call this as same name so that we can keep track of it. Ideally for you, you will have a bunch more visuals in your dashboard, but just for our demo, once you release the dashboard to your sales team or field team, you know in no time what you hear would be, hey, I don't see this metrics, I don't see this value, I need this type of visual, or I don't have this one which I really need. And you would end up in bunch of requests and all with top priority and everybody needs it yesterday or a week before, right? So that's where our queue comes into picture. Queue is the new addition to QuickSight, and we had it released in last reinvent. And what it does is it's using a deep learning algorithm behind the scene, and it kind of accepts business questions in plain English from the user and restates it to the data set behind it, and then understands the user questions and intent and maps it to the data, and then it comes up with the visualization in QuickSight that fits for the question and the data set. We are going to see that. That's what is happening behind the scene, but we will see that in action over here. Let's create the queue topic. A topic is a new addition that you will see in the QuickSight only if you subscribe to that one. Here it is. Let's add a new topic based on whatever we did so far. Create a new topic. We'll call this as live demo as well. Just say demo. Continue. You get to pick the data set. This data set is the data set we created in QuickSight. So queue is dependent on QuickSight data set. You can choose multiple data sets as well, but for our purpose, we are going to pick the data set we just created in QuickSight. Let's say continue. So our queue topic has been created, and queue started indexing the data values within your data set. So it's kind of for every unique string it finds, it's creating the index, and that's what is being used behind the scene when a user types in a question in plain English. Okay, this will take kind of like a minute or so to index the data, but up here what you are seeing is where user will type in the question. You see the topic name has changed to live demos SAS. This is the name I gave for the topic I'm creating, and this is the drop down list where user can pick different topics that they have access to or that they are owning. Here is where they can type in the question and get the answer. But while this is doing it, as an author of the topic, there are few things you could do to make the queue topic work for your user. This is a new topic, so you are not seeing the statistics over here. But if the topic is being released and if it's being used by your user, you'd see the usage across different time frame here, and then different kind of interaction and feedback from the user. Once the queue topic is ready, we will ask a bunch of different questions over here, and I will show you how the things are changing here at the time. But then the most important thing with queue is curation of the queue topic with the data set. This is the data set that we attached. Once you open it, these are the different fields. Some of them you might recognize from our data brew transformations like region, sales, and whatnot. So here is where you kind of tell queue what each data means and how you want your user questions to be answered. The first step we ask you to do within Q is to exclude any fields that you don't want Q to look for answering. For example, if you have an identity column, or if you have a key column, or if you have an audit column, you don't want that to be used for your business users question, so you can exclude them. I do have a date key. It's very simple, just flip the button over here, that's it. Against each column, you can do that. And then the second one is, most of the times we have the field names to be like a database field names. So if you want to make it as a business friendly name, you can just edit it by clicking the pencil over here and edit it just in here. Okay, and then sometimes one field might be referred by different set of users in different terminology. For that, we have synonyms over here. In our example, let's say sales might be referred as revenue by one team, invoices another team, something like that. We can keep adding synonyms to it. So you can say revenue, and then I can say, invoice. What will happen here is, the moment somebody says, show me the revenue for 2021, then Q would know it has to go and look into the sales field in order to bring in the revenue data. In case if you have not set up this synonym, Q would ask you, what do you mean by this? Okay? This is how you kind of, as an author for the topic, you tune and curate the topic for the better user experience. Okay? And then another thing is, so far we have seen how user language or business language is mapped to the field. But what if you want Q to answer who, when, where kind of questions, right? That's where what we call a semantic type comes into picture. I have a couple of columns which I could use for that. Contact name. My contact name could be a person, so I can tell Q over here, okay, whenever somebody asks who had more sales or who is my contact, for who type of question, if you want Q to look into any column, set the semantic type as person. Then you know very well, when we add a person, we might end up counting them and we might end up with duplicates. You can even tell Q not to do that by setting what kind of aggregation you want to allow on that particular dimension. In my case, I don't want to duplicate it, or I don't want to double count. So I'm going with count distinct is the allowed default aggregation, and I don't even want to allow just a count on the column. And I can even specify what format I want it to be. Since it is the text field, I don't need it for this one, but there is an option to do that. So that's one. And we have a couple of more columns, but let's see whether we can say where kind of question. Over here, I have a geo column. I can specify Q to use this for my location, which is if I ask where is my most sales from, Q can pick from here. Right? Now let's see, we set up the semantic types. Let's see how Q will answer and provide the question, right? So, show me the revenue for 2021. Oops. Okay. I made a typo and Q is kind of asking me, what is this? Say revenue. Let me take off a typo. I'm getting a KPI visual from QuickSight as my answer. What happens behind the scene is, if you see here, a revenue from the user question has been highlighted. If you hover over that, you see Q is using sales for it. That's because you created a synonym of revenue for the sales field within your data set. And then if you see here, 2021 is highlighted and Q is using the date column. Only date available is order date, but in case if you have more date columns, Q will ask you which date you would like to use. Okay. Now, say for example, slightly modify this question to be show me the monthly revenue. Now Q will know that it has to use a different objects for you, and it is picking a trend chart. Okay. And in case if you want to say split by customers, you can say that show me the monthly revenue for 2021 by customer. And I got a table. If I say that I don't like this, I want a trend chart, I can easily go here and click and change it. Okay. And if this is too busy, now I want to filter it. So far the questions we have used, if you see here, Q is taking this and restating it to the data field that it has down below here. And so far we are dealing with column level, field level. What if I want values within the field to be the decision-making factors for my visuals? I can do that. Here, let's say Amazon is there, and I'll pick for Amazon versus Aetna. While I was typing in, you saw that it was kind of intelligence was popping up with the data value. That's because Q have already indexed the string values within your data, and it is kind of helping you to pick from the data automatically. Okay. Now we are filtering based on values within a column, and in here so far we have seen show me this, show me that. But let's see whether we could use who, when, where kind of questions. Now I can say that who had most sales in 2021.
Ask a question before you do next one.
Yeah.
Is Q smart enough to know if?
Can we wait for the mic? Oh, sorry.
Is Q smart enough to know if the semantics don't make sense, like for Amazon versus a product or something like that? So things that you shouldn't be comparing. Is it going to be smart enough to catch those errors?
Yeah. So it will ask you what did you mean. If it couldn't find, it will ask you what do you
So
mean.
to understand the semantics.
To some
these are
extent,
two different
yes.
fields you're trying to.
Yes, that's what you have to do when you are doing the topic. If you define the semantics and if you define the synonyms correctly, then Q would understand, and if it doesn't find the answer, it will ask, what did you mean?
Okay. And I was going to ask you another question before this. The semantic type, can you add your own semantic types?
Not at this time. Yeah.
At the same time, within Q, there's that feedback mechanism that the users have.
Right.
So if you see in the bottom the thumbs up or thumbs down, the author can see what the user is giving feedback on. And the author can see how many questions are being asked of the same topic. So it helps as well to streamline kind of the process to make the dashboards more geared towards the user depending on what they're asking.
So you as the designer will take that feedback and keep it.
Exactly.
Correct. So
Or you see, there's someone asking something that's not adding up. Let's see how we can kind of do the synonyms, the semantic, to make sure when they ask such a question, it's giving the right answer. Because you as a user most probably will know that there's something not adding up.
That's right.
And then as an author, you can also link certain visual to the question type, which means that you are controlling Q to use certain visuals when certain type of questions being asked.
Okay, so that's what I was going to ask. So you can actually say, I want this kind of a chart for those kinds of questions.
Right. And then you can create the variants also, not just one-to-one, it's like many-to-one.
We'll do one more question. I know everybody wants to go to happy hour. There's two.
We know it's a lot of information packed in the session. If you guys have any questions, please reach out to us even after this.
Okay, thanks for giving me the chance to. Okay, so now I'm seeing that, I can share this dashboard and then report insights with everyone in my team. And then, I can, so I'm looking at where we can apply low-level security so that someone will not be able to see what is not supposed to see. Thank you.
Yes, when you're creating the data set, you have a provision to create a row-level data set and apply it. And that is part of the quick site and Q. We can dive deep if one stays.
So Q is built on top of QuickSight. Obviously, it's just a feature of QuickSight, and it's utilizing the data sources and the data sets you build in QuickSight. So that data set on the QuickSight level is where you apply those row level, column level security. Then you build that topic on top of it, and it's going to respect all the row level security. And also, when you're typing something, you know how it says, "Did you mean this?" It also will respect the row level security. If you're not supposed to see that row, it will not indicate that row and complete the sentence for you. Can we get the mic back? Can you say that again? Uh-huh. Right. 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 No, it depends how you set up the role.
Okay, that's what I
mean.
mean.
That totally depends how you set it up. Do we have one more question in the back?
So since we have, as I understand, an engine campus, if I don't specifically code synonym for sales as revenue, can it understand that if I just leave it as default or not?
Raji, would it? The question is if he does not add a synonym for revenue as sales, would QuickSight already know it's revenue means sales unless you associate?
If you don't have that particular synonym added to sales, it will ask you, what did you mean? If you ask, show me the revenue, it will ask you, what did you mean? But if you ask, show me sales, it would give you the value. The moment you add the revenue as a synonym, then it will answer for revenue.
Right. So it becomes a very rule-based system rather than an intelligent system, I guess.
We want to give you the power to the author to kind of direct the readers of their dashboard or queue. In that way, you don't have kind of like a unleashed way, for people get some weird answers.
Right.
So we want
I
authors
just
to
have
have
one
fun.
more question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So is Q context aware in the sense, so if I ask for, show me the sales and it gives me a very busy chart, can I, later add another statement saying, filter it for 2022? Can I do that, or will I have to say the whole thing again, show me the sales filtered by 2022?
You can edit the question.
Yeah, I will have to edit the question. It doesn't keep track of my previous question. Right?
Your previous question is considered as one question, and now you are asking the second question. That's how it takes it.
Yeah.
When you saw me saying that show me the revenue, it was one question. And then when I say show me the monthly revenue, it was the second question.
All right. Thank you so much.
So I was creating one map and changing the conditional one, saying that I would use it in queue. This is where I was trying to say I can link whatever visual I want in a dashboard. I want to quickly show this to you guys. If you have a dashboard created and you want the queue to use only the visual from that dashboard, here is where you would link. And I have it by country. The moment I say this one, there is this one here. Whenever the user readers ask the question for where was the highest sales, it will bring in with the color coding, not the default blue one. That was something that I was telling during the dashboard creation.
Perfect. Thank you, Raji. I think that wraps up our demo part. I do want to thank you all for sitting through this. If you don't mind switching back to the slides on this side.
Going back to the searching on QuickSight, on Q.
Yeah.
When you searched for what is my revenue and you didn't have a synonym and it said, what do you mean? And you said sales column, does it automatically apply the synonym because you said revenue is related to sales now?
you are not saying it as an author, you are saying it as a reader when you are typing in the bar. At the time, it is only for you. If you want it to be for other readers, you need to be an author saying synonym for sales.
If I'm an author, does it still automatically correlate?
Not from
Not
the
from the
topic
search.
it,
Okay.
not from the topic
So I
bar
have to
it.
manually
You got
add the
to
synonym.
to add it in the data set level.
Okay, thank you.
But can the reader, will it store it for that same reader, or no, it's not?
It's for the data set itself, so it's going to be to any reader that accesses it. But the idea is it's one control from one person. The author is going to see what people are typing in, and they're like, oh, they're saying ventas. Maybe this person is trying to use a Spanish word for it, and let me put ventas as a synonym as well. So it's just all that feedback is going to that one person, right? But it's not coming from automatically applying because it could mess up
Even
this.
if the user is not doing a feedback, Q keep tracks of the questions, the variation of the questions, and authors can see them.
There are a bunch of resources for self-study. You will have access to the slides as well. You can access them, and all of these are actionable. So whether you want to utilize the Demo Central, which we have built, it's basically a quick site dashboard that is embedded on a portal, open for all our customers. It does have a number of demos for different industries and use cases. And it also has feature demos. So as we release new features for the product, we also create demos to highlight these features. Also have a number of demos specifically for Q, and some self-learning. So please go ahead and feel free to interact with these different resources for Q, for QuickSight, and for DataBrew. And then as a last thing, I think you've already attended a lot of sessions, but we have to tell you about this. It's not new. We do encourage you to get engaged with training and with certification. Feel free to use the QR code. Last thing, Sam and Raji who are here with you guys. And we would really appreciate it if you complete the survey as well.